Hello, welcome to Fender Play Live. I'm Eugene Edwards, and today we are talking about improv. We are going to just make this whole episode up as we go along. It sounds scary, but we'll break down some fundamental concepts. We'll show, we'll have something for players of all levels, simple tricks for getting you started, so you can start improvising on the guitar immediately. And helping us through today's journey is an FPL newcomer, Keven Eknes. Keven, say hello.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, not much, man. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're also, as always, joined by Dr. Dylan CALIGIURI.
Hello, world.
Did I pronounce that right?
It's calamari, but that'll do. That'll do just fine.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
All right. Hello. So hello to our viewers all over the world. We've got people checking in from Vancouver, Canada. We've got a couple of viewers from Brazil. We've got some late night viewers down there, over there in Australia. Thank you very much for joining us again, guys. And of course, viewers from all over the U.S. Welcome. We got Sioux Falls, Temple, Texas. I see you. Anyway, tell us where you're from in the comments. Let us know how if we're big, bad, and nationwide or worldwide. Now, Keven is a guitarist who's played with artists like Journey's Jonathan Cain, Jesse McCartney, and Leslie Odom Jr., and he's just joined us as one of the newest instructors on Fender Play. So we're really happy to have you along. I know. So you guys are going to get pretty excited when you hear him play. And so what kind of gear do you have today, Keven? Tell us about that Strat.
Right now, it's my favorite Strat. It's a 69. So it's from, it's like 51 years old, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a great one.
It looks impeccable.
Yeah, it's a refinish, so
okay.
I guess that kind of like keeps it up a little bit, but it just plays and feels like an old guitar, and there's just something different about it. Like it feels like I'm kind of with an old friend kind of a thing, versus like I'm trying to just play like the plank, you know. So there's something beautiful with that, I think.
Can we hear a little bit of it?
What do you want to hear?
Beautiful. Wow.
I can hear the ghosts of all the guitars that guitar's been next to. Yeah. Wow.
A 69 Strat. Well, thank you so much for bringing that out. And Dylan, what do you have there?
Well, it's not a 69 Strat, but it is. This is a 3-tone Sunburst Acoustasonic. And I'll tell you, it's the Strat version, right? This thing looks and sounds amazing. Here, I'll play a little bit for you, see. So this guitar is something to be meddled with. I'll tell you what, this is something. Yes,
you do meddle a lot with it too. Yeah, it's a nice.
I meddle.
I
tend
to meddle.
Here,
this beautiful thing is Troy Van Leeuwen from Perfect Circle has a signature Jazzmaster, and this is it. And it is it's a beefy one. Keven mentioned earlier, it's probably, so you can tune down like Troy does, but it's just got a really solid feel. If those of you who like a substantial neck, this one might be for you. And I just have like the deluxe 65 reissue on the Mustang here, so I'm going pretty simple setup, because I think Kevin's going to do most of the playing today, hopefully. So let's get to it. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the comment box about what we're talking about today, and we'll do our best to answer them. Now, Keven, get us started with some improv here. Don't hold back, and viewers, don't worry. We'll start with the basics. But Keven, you can just kind of play something on top of your head, and then we'll talk about it.
Cool. What kind of mood are you in?
Let's go with something of a quicker tempo here, since we're at the beginning of the show. Kind of get
quicker. I mean, sure. What kind of like, are you feeling sad, or are you kind of excited about something? Or?
I'm excited. You're excited? Okay. Excited is
that one. That one.
Cool.
Yeah.
that makes you sad, we can go. But then you're feeling a little bit hopeful.
Yeah.
So
there you go. Okay, so that was beautiful, first of all, and that neck pickup is really something something to behold on that guitar. Now, okay, so let's go back to let's back it way up and start with some simple concepts to begin. What do we mean when we say improv, Keven?
I think improvisation could be just anything that's in the now. So like right now we're improvising because this exact conversation is not scripted. So basically we're improvising, and it's the same thing when it comes to the instrument. You're doing something that you haven't done in the exact same order before. And so there's many elements to that, but I think kind of where to start is by having certain building blocks, and those building blocks could be certain notes, it could be licks, chords, double stop things that you've done. And I think like the way I kind of like to look at that would be the same way as we have words and sentences that we've used. You kind of construct it here and now, and this conversation that we're having has never been constructed this exact way before, but we're all using stuff that's kind of there already.
Pre-existing elements, such as words and sentences, we employ them to have a very present and in the now conversation. That's great. That's a great way of putting it. And we'll talk a little more about how it is a means of expression here. Now, Dylan, what is the you mentioned something a couple weeks ago when we were talking about this episode. Where do we get this word improv from, or improvisation?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely I love where Kevin's going with that. It's basically the word impetus has a similar origin or etymology as the word improv. So it's like the basis for something unforeseen is in Latin. And if you picture what you have to do to truly improv, is you sort of turn off the self-monitoring part of your brain and you turn on the feeling part. So you turn on kind of the more older part of the brain that says like, how do I feel, which incorporates a lot of what we were just doing with Keven, right? So
well, notice
same
yes,
concept.
Because Keven, you were calling out the emotion, and then you evoked it or invoked it with your guitar. So that's a very, very interesting thing there. And why is this concept important for guitarists, or more broadly for musicians in general, Keven?
I think that you can tap into another sense of authenticity in somebody. So it's kind of it's a little bit scary because you're kind of standing there, but it's kind of the closest that you could be to like who you are as a person, because not only like anything that you have experienced in life and any music and solos that you've worked on and learned, it's all going to be a part of your vocabulary that you can draw from in the improvisation. So I think it's super important because it's the most like authentic self that you can show yourself to other people.
Interesting. So yeah, sometimes there are some people who are relatively shy as speakers, but they can play really well. It's just maybe it's a little easier for them to express themselves that way, and so you get a more authentic experience. Now let's talk about why, in terms of making things up on the spot, can seem intimidating for many players. But we're going to break things down to some simple steps that can help you start improvising today. Step one, Keven. What about we were mentioning learn and establish melody? What can you tell us about that?
Find out how was that melody how does that link to the rest of the song? Mm-hmm. And how can you kind of recycle that? So I think that a good way to like look at that, going back to the language thing, would be like, what language is this? Are we talking like Latin right now, or are we talking English?
Right.
You know, and like where do those words come from, and how can we like adapt them? So certain songs will fit into certain kind of keys, and you can also manipulate that, of course. Like sometimes, for instance, like I'm Norwegian, and we have certain English words in our language that are just straight out English, and you can kind of, certain licks will kind of work in different settings and all that sort of stuff. So I think.
Do you mind give us an example of what you're talking about?
For instance, something that everybody knows. If you know the lick to "Sweet Child of Mine,"
Okay.
that could work over like for instance, in the actual recording, it would be over C, no D. But you could also have it work over, for instance, E. And it gives like a way different emotion from it. Or you could do it in A, for instance. And
Interesting. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, these will all, in relation to what you're playing it over, these notes will have a different function, and from that different function, it's going to feel very different, but it's the same word, kind of a
And
thing.
then what?
If that makes sense.
I see. So, and then how about what if we add some, so like we were talking about like a melody. Here's a song on the site, "The Temptations' My Girl," which is in C. So we know it has the guitar lick, but then the melody that's sung is it's part of the C major scale, right? So that's the melody that's sung. That's the strange, or not the strange. That's the strong, simple melody. But we can start embellishing on that. What things can we do to embellish that melody, for instance?
You can try to see what would it sound like if you have kind of like a lower note that's different than the initial melody. So like if this melody is in if it's in C,
Yep.
what would it sound like? Okay, so what would it sound like if there was say an E over it? It would sound super dark, right? It would
Right.
And so like the emotion would be totally different. And I would say that the first step would be to find out what other possibilities can we use this figure over. And so like the lowest note, what happens if we change that to something else? And you can try out anything, and I mean there's no rules. It's just where make a mental note of, or even write down like, what is this, how does this make you feel when it's played over for instance G, or if it's played over F sharp, what does it make you feel like? And some of them doesn't work at all, like it sounds pretty awful, but that could also be another thing that you could use, because maybe for the listener you want them to feel a little bit at unease or something like that, you know?
Or Dylan, what would you do to embellish like that melody there? For instance, like if you were playing "My Girl," an instrumental version, what techniques would you use?
Yeah. So, the first thing I'd do is probably just get it in my head. So let's say you're out there listening right now and you've checked this song out on the site, and you can that's the melody, just that first little fragment of I got sunshine. So let's just imagine you're on the bandstand, you're in the Temptations, and you're singing I got sunshine. So I'm adding an upper neighbor, right? I'm just adding a tone, or I got sunshine. So so that's just adding a note or taking a note away. You can also play with the rhythm. So if we've got, that's the original rhythm. If you've got, so it's almost like setting parameters of what you're going to start to improvise with. Sometimes when you're starting out is a great way to get rolling. It's like, I'm going to work with these 3 notes. I'm going to figure out how many different things, which you'll die trying. There's just too many darn things you could do with those 3 notes. But I'm going to figure out how many different things I can figure out to do with my bag of tools. using those three notes. And then eventually your brain goes offline and you're just making stuff up. And that happens when you just keep trying to do it over and over and over and over again. And you push through the desire to play something you're ready to play.
And you talk about that bag of tools. On the side, of course, we have all these skills, these string bending.
Yep. Oh, I like that
Single
one.
note vibrato.
Oh, yeah.
String slides. So then we're just kind of using a little bit of a technique, a little bit of a flourish, if you will. We didn't really change the melody, but just by the fact that we attacked it a little differently or expressed it a little differently already starts to be in the moment. It's more in the now. It's more improv in that way. We have some questions, so let's try and knock these things out here, Kevin. Scott Fogelman saying, go ahead.
Yes, I have something fun to add to that as an exercise. If you're looking for just tools that you can add to it, one cool thing would be to find another instrument. Let's say piano. How many ways can you play this melody that a piano player can't play it? So it could be like, it could be slides, it could be slide up, or it could be, you could use the whammy bar, or you could like hit the whammy, or kind of like imagine all the ways that a piano player wouldn't be able to do that, and like write it down on a note, and those could be kind of like good tools for you to have that you could play around with when it comes to improvisation.
I love this. In fact, I would say or a saxophone, which can only play one note at a time. So how about I try? I make it double stops. I'll put a harmony. Something a sax or a trumpet can't do, right? That alone, right? That just inspires this idea. So that's a great. So you just kind of think about it in a kind of more philosophical way about other instruments, and then it kind of it's a way of telling yourself like, wait, I have an advantage as a guitar player. Let's use this advantage, right? That's pretty good. Scott Fogelman saying, when improvising, do you try to follow the chord progressions like the solo matches the chords? Kevin.
Yeah, but ideally, when it comes to like in the moment, you want to just let go of that and just have fun. I think the most important is to have fun with it. I think it's amazing to practice chord changes. Like I went to university for guitar, and there obviously you study chord changes and like play over the chords and all that. But I think the most important part is to be able to hear those chord changes in your head, and from there, like what you do will kind of naturally come out when it comes to playing over the chords.
I see. And you're probably using more advanced things like modes and scales that kind of help you exercise those ideas where you're not trying to adhere just to the chord changes. You're actually playing in a much broader context in that way, right?
Yes and no. You could simplify it. You could imagine yourself playing each of the chords. So if you're still playing if you're having a solo over My Girl, and you can imagine the chord. So let's say that you have like this bar chord, like the C shape. You can imagine that over the C chord and like any of these notes. And then go into the F chord, you could go here. And you can imagine any of these notes. And so any of those notes, you just imagine the next chord ahead of time, and what would it be like if you were playing rhythm over that, and you could pick any of those notes.
Gotcha. And Kelly Rout says, I'm curious about rhythm guitar improv. Any tips or thoughts?
Oh, yeah.
Listen to Jimi Hendrix.
Well, you're right. That's pretty good.
I think I think something that's very cool is to see what else can you do with a chord. So something that I like to do, let's say we have that same chord that we had, we could simplify that to kind of enable us to use other fingers. So let's say we take the core of this chord, so like 3 notes, and play that here, and then find out what does the notes around it sound like. So if you play this note, that could be added, or this note, that could be added if the tonality is like, for instance, or if this note here could be added like almost any time because that same note is here. Or on the G string, is a little bit more kind of makes you a little bit more uneasy. Or they all kind of sound different, and experiment with what does each of these notes sound like, and kind of like right off the gate, I think this here, something that's kind of cool is this kind of shape here could be, we could add the pentatonic scale to it, for instance.
Right.
Some of the major pentatonic scale. For instance, so we can just add those extra notes, and this chord here is kind of like half the pentatonic scale already.
Right.
If that makes sense. So that's a cool way to embellish it.
You know what I'm picking up, Dylan, from what Kevin's saying is there's no such thing as a wrong note. Right? Traditionally, he's playing the flat 2. You've got the,
I think so. I think if you're working on rhythm guitar, depending on where you are in the setting, a good way to add some improvisation if you're just at the open chord level might be to try a walk up into the chord. So like if you're playing, and just if you and a friend are playing and you try adding a walk up, that might be a good thing. Or if you're in the chord, with my pinky, so I'm making it kind of tricky, I suppose. But looking at where, kind of what Kevin's saying, you can apply those same principles to something easy. Another awesome, and this is big, rhythm guitar technique for you to work on to get your improvisation going is like popcorn picking. So if you have like a... A rhythm guitar, half the rhythm guitar is doing is he's doing some popcorn. He's making. There's a lot of food involved in my analogies. I apologize for that, but you get the basic idea. I'm very hungry.
So what you're saying,
it must be that.
As opposed to just strumming that chord.
Yes. I'm cooking popcorn.
I'm using Kevin's C chord.
That's right.
Just that triad along the rim. I mean, with some palm muting. So yeah, I see what you're saying. You can kind of like jazz up, or jazz up your rhythm playing just by kind of experimenting.
Put some movement in there.
Put some movement in there. That's right. So you've learned a melody and you started to add some variations to it. The next step would be to create your own lick. Now, what are some tips on creating your own licks, Kevin? What would you say?
I would start with pulling up the little list that we already made of different tools that we have, like the techniques that we know. Do we know down picking, up picking? Do we know palm muting? Do we know sweep picking? Like, it could go anywhere. And then find out, what does it sound like if you pick 2 notes, for instance?
Okay. And
then limit yourself to only playing those 2. And then figure out how many different ways can you play the 2. Could you repeat a note multiple times? When does it kind of get boring for the listener and stuff? And I think a valuable part about that would be to just record yourself on the phone while you're doing it. I think just knowing what options you have for each note, kind of like loud and clear, I would definitely write it down and experiment with it, and just seeing how it feels to add this certain technique at this point.
Can we see you do something with just 2 notes, like what you just said? That's interesting.
Yeah. For instance, so if
how creative we can be with 2 notes.
If we pick those 2 notes, what can we do with it? Sorry, I added a little note there.
You couldn't help it. That's all right. We'll let it go.
Thanks. But yeah, just could be how many techniques that I use there. I used palm muting, I used bending, I used sliding up, sliding down, I used pull-ups, hammer-ons. Just how can you go from one note to the next, and just what does it sound like if you're doing a slide and then a pull-off? Or maybe you want to do a hammer-on, like a micro bend, like you bend a little bit up and then like go. For instance.
Nice.
There's so many different ways you can be creative, and I think the most important part is to find out what is the current vocabulary that you have, and then try to be creative with it. Because I think it's like in the kind of ocean of like different ways of playing the guitar, I think it's very easy to lose track of like what can we all do. Like you have so many options that you really don't think about.
Mm-hmm. Now, this kind of leads into something that Scott Viner's asking. What is the difference between noodling and improvising?
Oh boy. Wow. Well,
good question. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dylan.
I'll just Scott. So I'll give you an audio example here. So I'm going to noodle, and this is going to make everyone disgust. Here we go. All right. So there was really no. It was just like noodling. I was literally searching for a particular noodle amongst a lot of noodles potentially. Now here's improvising.
You're so hungry. Still more.
I'm very hungry. God, I hope it happens soon. So here So it's like there is some actual direction in what I'm doing, and I really don't think there is a specific difference between noodling and improvising. It's just when we think of improvising in music, we're thinking of with some type of context generally, and if it's no context whatsoever, and different people have different thresholds for that. There's free jazz where people are just sort of playing over the top each other and they blow, a hallucinogenic, I don't know, cow out of their horn or something like that. And then there's actually like improvising.
I've seen that show. It's
fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty
improvising that would be over chord progression, as you guys have been mentioning. So it's tough to put parameters on something that by design has no boundaries. However, noodling is generally considered somewhat random. Improvising is generally considered somewhat random. I hope I answered your question.
Could I ask this?
Go ahead, Kevin.
In that very first example, how many times before have you played that the exact same way? Probably a couple.
This is good. I'm sure I played that riff or lick type of thing before.
But the second time, like have you ever walked through, like done the walking bass through the exact progression with the same voicings before, kind of a thing?
I was deliberately trying to not play a normal voicing through that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you got me dead to rights there.
Well, also it goes to at the very beginning when Kevin was playing. He called the emotion, and so that alone, that intent to create sadness, to create excitement, to create these things, that has an intent right there that made it much more improvisation and not so much noodling. That's my opinion. That's what I got from what Kevin was doing there.
I like it.
Now, Sherry Hoyer asks a great question here. How do you prevent overthinking or being your own worst critic when improvising? Kevin, this is a good question here, and I think it lends itself to what we're talking about here.
I think a cool thing that I do is to try to just be aware of kind of physical feelings. So like if I play, like I try to feel the strings, like does it feel like they have a lot of gunk on them? Like do they feel gross? Like is this the kind of guitar neck that I always play? Like is it a different guitar? Like does my little finger hurt a little bit today? Like be aware of those things, kind of in the same sense that if I said like notice all the red in the room that you are right now, like the color red, any object with that color would kind of like brighten up a little bit. So I would say try to like be focused on like anything that's going on right now. Like if you're playing with somebody, like what does the drummer play? Like how does he play the hi-hat? Like where's the kick? Like if you want to go very advanced, you could go like, okay, so between the kick and the snare, like is the snare ahead or a little bit behind? Like try to be aware of those things. And I think that can take away from that kind of like almost like bullying part of your mind that kind of like wants you to like play good and stuff, and like focus on just creating music and having fun, I think.
There you go. We have so many questions, so we're trying to get to them all, and we're starting to run out of time. Dylan, a question for you. What are some resources for beginners looking to hone their improv skills here?
Yeah, that's fantastic. So if you guys are out there and you're listening to this, don't be intimidated by it. Try to feel a spark of inspiration by this, right? So thinking about, Kevin's talking about the spirit of the moment, right? So catharsis. And the tools, the bag of tools are available for you on Fender Play to get rolling on this. So I think, starting out with bending, sliding, all these different techniques that we've talked about, trills, hammer-ons, pull-offs, these are all ways for you guys to take a simple melody. Let's say we have... You could just work on pull-offs. And it's vibrato in. So it's something that's actually covered on path. These are integrated in so that when you guys finish the path, they'll be able to step out a little bit and be able to work on improv. But you don't have to wait till you finish. You can get started now by just following your muse a little bit, as Kevin's talking about, and take one or two of those tools with you. Give it a shot. You can do it.
Now, and Dylan, one more thing, because I know Keven mentioned earlier, just using your phone, right? Just record yourself on your phone. It's like, can you really quickly talk about using a looper? At the top of the show, I made a loop, just a 2-chord loop of an A major going to E in this kind of swing shuffle thing, and I just kind of improv'd over that. So can you just kind of inspire some people in terms of how to use a looper to help their improv? And then I'm going to have Keven just kind of go nuts and play again. Awesome.
That's perfect. Okay, so I think when you're playing with other people or when you're taking a chord progression, even just a single chord, if you can loop that in the background and try playing over it, it's going to help you develop kind of like something that you're working over the top of, a canvas that you're working over the top of. It's a little bit of primer. And some of these more specific questions about playing over chord progressions are dealt with directly by using a looper. There's some sources that I want to point you guys to. So the Fender Tune app not only has backing tracks, it also has just drum beats. I love the idea of just playing to a drum beat. So think of... You can literally hear the drums in the background as you're playing. Now imagine those drums are there. Boy, it's going to be a lot better. The same thing with the backing tracks. Don't be afraid to just hop on YouTube, type in a song that maybe you want to give a shot playing a backing track over. You'll get some mixed results, but it's something to just start kind of toying with and forgiving yourself for any mistakes you might make ahead of time, because this is about the spirit of the moment.
There you go. Now I'm going to have Keven play for us, and then we're going to start assigning us some homework. So Keven, can you give us just a little more improv, like just a motif, and you just kind of expand on that?
Something that I kind of think could be cool right now would be to just demonstrate that there aren't like any bad notes. So if we keep going with that riff. So for instance, if we just go up the scale, just like E, will that work? Would F work? Oh shoot. Would F work? Does it sound good? Kind of spiky.
I love it.
F sharp. G. G sharp. A. A sharp.
Hey.
Or like, for instance, we all know.
Yeah.
B. C works, so sharp. D sharp.
Yeah.
So literally, and can kind of work. I think that's
So
kind
that
of,
was extraordinary. So you took a riff in E that you got from Dylan, and then you.
Well, I
just
took it
kind
from
of
Stevie
went
Wonder.
up. Oh, that's true. It was a bit of superstition, but then you started on every possible note, chromatically just went up, and each one of those notes seemed to inspire a whole new thread. And that just happened in almost, I don't know if that was barely 2 minutes. That was incredible. Now, I want to mention that backing tracks are available in feedback mode when you're on the Fender Play site. Also, for you Mustang owners, you have a looper pedal. It's what I use to make the loop at the top of this. I don't know if Dylan, if you're using your Mustang looper pedal as well. So if you have a Mustang amp, it comes with a looper pedal, and we do have videos on how to use it. And again, like I said, just strum one chord and noodle/improvise over that to get yourself started. That was thank you. So that was such a cool demonstration of how one different note each time could inspire a whole new line. That was fantastic, Keven. Thank you. Now, speaking of fantastic, Dylan, it's your fantastic task to assign some homework.
Yeah, it's homework time. Well, you guys,
right.
This is fantastic. This has been fantastic, and I think what you guys can look forward to if you're a beginner is just that My Girl melody that we were talking about. And basically, just getting even the first fragment of that would be enough to start with. If you can learn that, and you're a beginner, right? And we've got, of course, that's a lesson on the site. If you're starting there, just work that melody over and over again. And then let's try adding in a different note. You literally give yourself the room to just start doing this, right? And it doesn't have to be anything fantastic right away. Just start by trying different things out. If you're intermediate, take the melody and embellish using some of the techniques that are on the site. So we've got... So we're going to take the melody, we're going to start ornamenting it. We're going to be adding slides, we're going to be adding pull-offs, we're going to be adding all kinds of stuff. If you're advanced, I want your most intense.
Here we go.
Oh, I want tapping. My Girl. I want My Girl to literally blow everyone's mind. I want one of your neighbors to come over and ask what you've done. So that's it. If you're a beginner, just start with that fragment. If you're intermediate, work in some simple techniques. And if you're advanced, literally go to the market with this song.
Cool. All right. Let's get to the giveaway. Oh, go ahead, Keven, please.
If you're interested in doing this thing where like just finding out each of the notes, what you can do is like keep that rhythm and just like try different notes with it. So you could go up the chromatic scale and you could see what you like and just make a mental note of it. Okay, so these will work. So what if you take one note up? Or like how can you just change like the actual notes and just keep the rhythm? Because like your rhythm, you're going to be able to hear what you want to hear like rhythm wise, and then just change the notes a little bit and see how does it make you feel.
That's a great piece of advice there, because it also helps you keep track of what's going on, right? It's almost like you've got that rhythm, keep that, and then you said just move this note, nudge this one here, but stay that rhythm. That way you don't get lost. You're kind of, you're kind of posted to something for safety, if you will, and in the beginning. That's a great tip there. Now it's time to give some stuff away, right, Dylan?
It is. But first, I want to give a shout out to Eric Lindsay of the Fender Play Facebook group. Eric has been a fantastic member. We've got these members that literally go way out of their way to answer questions for other people and to really help kind of guide new learners and new players, and that's what this is all about. So, Eric, this chord's for you, sir, and we appreciate you a lot. Yeah, I'll give you another.
Way
chord
to
next
go.
time. Okay, yeah,
that's on the Facebook group. Shout out there, right?
That was the Facebook group. Yeah, shout out. So now, the giveaway segment. We give away stuff every single show. All you've got to do to be automatically entered to win something is simply be a member of Fender Play, and you've got to use it for 21 minutes. And those could be 19 minutes of improvisation and then 3 minutes of whatever. However you want to do it, 21 minutes is what we need a week, and you're automatically entered to win. You can pick from guitars, bass amps, ukuleles, all kinds of different things. And we announce, hopefully, your name at the end of the show next week. Do you guys want to know who won this week?
Can't wait. I can't wait. This
Okay.
is so exciting. All those people are waiting. They're dying to hear their name.
Give me an improvisational primer to this. So something's going to happen. Here we go. Gavin C. Gavin C. is the winner.
Gavin C.
Fantastico.
But Fantastico. Way to go, Gavin C. Congratulations. Enjoy your new guitar, bass, amp, ukulele, whatever you choose to get, but make sure you improv with it. Dylan, what else you got for us, man?
Well, so there's new stuff on the site constantly, but I don't know if you guys know, there's a particular time of year that we're approaching that's known for its musical accoutrements, if you will.
Sure,
and it's holiday time. It's holiday time. So a couple of new songs we've got tons of songs. There's a holiday collection on the site, but here's a new one that's on there. It's do you guys recognize it? Does anybody recognize it?
The harmonic minor tells me it's definitely O Hanukkah.
It's O Hanukkah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We've got Hanukkah and we've got Have a Little Dreidel on there. So finally, we've got some fantastic songs on the site for the holiday season. Also, check out the other classics. Another new song that's on there. I'm going to do this for the producer. Breakfast tables and okay. So, anyways, it's "Daughter" by Pearl Jam, right? And hopefully you learn the lyrics. I think he improvises those every time he sings them, much like my outfits. And that's it. Back to you, Eugene.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dylan. And one last comment. In the comment sections, we got this from The Adventures of One Wire. Says this has been an absolutely fantastic stream this evening. I have gotten a lot out of this one. Keven is incredibly interesting in his thought process. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, thanks, One Wire. Thank you so much, and thank you, Keven. Huge thank you for helping us explore this idea of improv, man. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Play beautifully. Welcome aboard. I think people are going to be really, really happy to have you as their instructor. Now, what do you have to plug? Anything going on?
Hopefully, an album. I'm aiming for early spring next year. Release a solo album called Dark Canyon. So hit me up on socials for that.
What's your handle on social? How do we find you?
My name, Keven Eknes.
There you go. Okay, well, you made that easy for everybody. That's smart.
Yeah.
That's good marketing.
But Keven is spelled weird. It's Norwegian, so Keven.
2 E's in your Keven, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and to everybody else, I want you to keep safe. I want you to keep practicing, and we'll see you next week at the same time, same place. Now, everybody, get ready on your keyboard to tap out a capital G in the comments, or if you have your instrument, get ready to play a big G chord, and Kevin's going to improv over it. On the count of 4, we'll see you. 1, 2, 3, 4.